I guess I do actually agree with you that the idea that there's not an objective morality without I think that's true. I think there probably isn't an objective morality. I'm also a skeptic, I should say.
Right.
And but I guess basically I sort of think can we kind of come up with sort of other standards, but which are not sort of like fully arbitrary? Like, because basically, there's either or not. Like, if there's objective morality, then just boom, that's what it is. It's pretty clear. But like, can we sort of, rather than just well, if we don't have objective morality, then it's kind of just like a toss-up, and it is a matter of opinion. But can't we sort of find things that we can use to support one thing versus another? And I guess even that is opinion. And it's
exactly. Sure. I mean, you could do that, but it's your support, and Joseph Stalin will use utilitarianism to justify his purges.
Right. Yeah, I took like a philosophy ethics class, and there were a ton of different, like throughout the ages, people, utilitarianism.
That's right.
Just, I should go back and look at them. But like, I guess, just, pretty simple example. Like, if we just did something as simple as, like this action that I'm thinking of taking, it will like hurt this other person clearly, like either physically or emotionally. Like that would be, we could just say, well, so why don't we just all sort of use that as a standard of something that we should not do? Like, whether you want to call that evil or not, because who's really to say that it's objectively evil? But like, if we just, so I sort of see that as different than just sort of purely arbitrary, like, whatever we want to do.
Okay.
Like, some things would hurt people more than other things. And the things that don't hurt people, obviously, we should do those things. And that, and charity, and a lot of the things that you've been saying. I sort of think you could build, arguments for those things based on these things help people. They don't hurt people, etc. Like, I mean, that's really primitive, I know, but just kind of like, that would be something that you could say, well, there's some substance to why this thing and why not, bad murder things, they hurt people. And I know, and even that, I guess you could have.
And I like your system.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah,
we don't want to hurt people.
But
that's us,
Right.
And if someone says, but Cliffe and Anthony, you got to understand, in order to help the most amount of people, I got to slaughter a few million. My name's Joseph Stalin, by the way. I've got to slaughter, but I'm just like you, Anthony and Cliffe. I want to help people. Only thing is, I define the best path to helping people to be the realization of the communist dream. So we got to slaughter a few million people in order to have the communist dream realized. And then, and we say, okay, to be consistent, we'd have to say, well, we disagree, and we think our system's better than your system, Joseph Stalin, but it's all relative.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
I see what you're saying. You'd have to argue that, even if somehow that did help more people, you'd have to make the argument, well, the fact that it hurt anybody, that's not, that's not okay. Like, we can't, and that is a, sort of a subjective thing. Some people will say, no, it is better that more people were helped, even though you hurt people. So I fully understand what you're saying. I guess the main little point I'm making is, it's at least a little bit different than purely arbitrary. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are definitely some reasons that we can say, it's good to help people. There's some things you can base that on, even without knowing what the objective morality is.
Absolutely, Anthony. And obviously what I'm banking on is, in using this argument or evidence, I'm banking on the fact that you know very, very well that when Joseph Stalin says this is good, he's a crackpot, and when you say to really help people is good, you're on to something that's true, that's real, that's good, objectively.
So, yeah, pretty much. So I guess the other thing I was gonna bring up I was watching you over like the past few days.
Yes.
And a thing I really fully agree with you on is the fact that we, wherever we get it from, we as humans, I think, truly do need a purpose and a sense of meaning. Or,
Yes.
I mean, I guess I would say if we want to, or, if we are likely to have the happiest or most fulfilled, lives or existences.
Great point.
And so, so where's it going with this? So basically, me as a skeptic,
Yep.
I think it's important. I can't kind of just sort of levy criticisms at religion,
Right.
and sort of
Right.
point out its flaws, but then also with that throw out the idea that we do need to have purpose and throw out all good things that may be associated with religion.
Right.
So when religion, certain religions, and many of them, these same things we're talking about, they encourage charity, helping others. Like those are things we should hold on to those.
Yes.
Even if I personally am skeptical about the aspects of religion which are, which I think don't have enough evidence to support them.
Yes.
Concrete evidence. So basically, yeah. I mean, just that idea. Like we need to, if we need to come up with other things and have other things. And I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's not really. It shouldn't be that hard, I guess, because we all have things that fill our lives anyway. Like we have families and friends, and the fact that we go to college here. Like we all have things that really, like those are the things that we're living for. Probably whether we know it or not, and they are giving us purpose and fulfillment in life. And so I kind of think we just need to identify those things and like proactively give ourselves, because I guess I do agree that sort of intrinsically our existence doesn't necessarily have a point. Like it doesn't have any intrinsic meaning to it. Just me as a skeptic thinking that. Like I think there's a lot of like possible things that we can get meaning from without, even still if we don't believe that there's evidence for God.
Yeah, but it's subjective meaning, right? If there is no God, you can
It
create
is.
your own meaning, but
That's
it's
true.
totally subjective.
I think you're basically right.
Right. Which means if you make your meaning in life to be to love people and serve people, you have to acknowledge that if you were to choose the opposite, to say the meaning of your life is to murder people and rip them off, that's just as legitimate.
Well, that's maybe going back to the first discussion about how it's not purely arbitrary, and I don't think like yes, we can't say that there's objective universal morality, but we can say there are good reasons for some actions.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know what you're saying, but I just don't think it's the same as purely the person that thinks we should kill everyone. That's like an equal viewpoint to the person that thinks that we should live a charitable life. Like I think there are other things you could sort of evaluate them on, like.
But then the
you'd
challenge is then you're putting yourself in the position of
it is hard. I mean,
creating
I think
truth.
Right. It's hard to figure
and
out.
that your creation is more correct than the other person's creation of truth. That's a difficult position to maintain. I mean, it comes off as sheer human arrogance, right? I create my truth, you create your truth. But it's subjective, and if I have the audacity to tell you that my truth is better than your truth, isn't that kind of arrogant of me?
Well, I mean, I think it's something that we need to arrive at for ourselves too. Like, it's not something you should just accept from others. And I think that's maybe another point to make. Like, I think us discussing this like this is just absolutely fantastic, and I think it's great. But I guess at the point, if I were to suddenly say like, okay, and now, I need all you guys to do exactly as I believe, and like I'm going to sort of assert that that's what you need to do.
Right.
And if furthermore, if I somehow took like political actions to make that more likely, like if I said, okay, not only am I asserting I'm right, but I'm going to fund political actions, laws that do certain things based on that morality, that outlaw gay marriage, or that say stem cell research, which could help us cure diseases. Eugene O'Neill, I believe, he was like an American writer.
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
said you might know the quote I mean. He said a quote, to live without illusions is
Yes.
unbearable, but to live with illusions is unforgivable. And I believe he was talking onto the same point. Like, in other words, it really is, thinking that we don't have the answers to things, thinking that, there is no objective morality that we can absolutely establish. That really is a hard thing. It's just kind of believing a pleasant and really, positive, I don't want to say a lie necessarily, but just thing that doesn't have, there's no reason, there's no concrete evidence to believe it.
All right, so you used a good quote from Eugene O'Neill about illusion. I would define illusion as a mistake about reality. I find illusions to be very harmful. If you make a mistake about reality, you will hurt yourself. If you don't think the law of gravity is going to suck you down from the top of that building over there, and you live in the illusion that you're going to be able to fly from there to there, it's going to be a very destructive illusion. So I am committed to trying to live in reality, not live in illusion. I am convinced that this is real, matter, energy. But I'm also convinced that this matter and energy comes from a creator, that there's life before inanimate matter. And this life, this creator, creates matter and energy. Therefore, I'm convinced it's very, very important that you and I acknowledge material reality and that we acknowledge God's existence. I'm convinced that we better ask ourselves and reason through, what is the good life? What does a good life look like? And I think it's real clear that Jesus made some claims about what the good life looks like. It looks like loving God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength, loving your neighbor as yourself. It looks like being humble and allowing God to be God and not playing God. It includes mourning over the evil that I do, turning away from that evil, asking for forgiveness, and seeking to live a good life. But good is defined as, the good life is defined as love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. The good life looks like patience, not being proud, respecting people, not boasting, but trying to work for the success of the other person. And that's the real good life. And if I get out of touch with that, I'm out of touch with reality. I'm living in an illusion. And I think that's what materialism is. It's living in an illusion. It's reducing reality to just matter and energy. And I think there's a lot more to reality than matter and energy. And if we don't wake up and realize that fact, we're going to live in an illusion, which is a mistake about reality.
Maybe one other thing I was thinking of. I remember you talking a little bit, it might have been yesterday or the day before, about if we don't have the knowledge that there's intrinsic meaning to life, that God is imbuing in our lives and we have meaning. Yeah. Why not just kill yourself? Why
Yeah.
life is, what's the point of life? Mm-hmm. And I think what I was thinking a bit of, what it reminds me of is if you were to like the reason that people have such a sort of harsh reaction to that, or religious people when you're asserting that, no, it's not true. I think it reminds me if you were to tell someone their whole life that at a certain point something incredible is going to happen, you build something up, say that I taught my son or something that when you turn 20 years old or 21 years old, you gain the ability to fly. It's just something that happens. It's just a silly example. But I told him that, I sort of pounded that into him.
Yeah.
And he grew up believing that, and then at some point when he found out that's not true, say he turns 20, he realizes, no, that didn't happen. Oh my gosh, what's the point of life anymore? I don't have this incredible, awesome thing. And my question is, yeah, but why to begin with did he ever think that he would? Like, why did he think that at 21 you gain these amazing powers? Why did you think that after you die there's 77 virgins waiting for you, or that heaven is waiting for you? Like, what was in the first place leading you to believe these things, which you're now super disappointed in?
Right.
Like that it's not the case.
Yeah, you better not believe something unless there's evidence to support it. Otherwise, you're in danger of being a very gullible person.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's basically the argument I'm making.
Yeah.
And
that's one of the reasons I like Jesus. Jesus says in Matthew 7:15, beware of false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they're ferocious wolves. In other words, good and evil are so intertwined in this life, truth and lies are so intertwined in this life, that you better be a skeptic, otherwise you'll get ripped off.
Right.
Good to meet you, Anthony. Thanks for raising the issues. I appreciate it.
We just got to talk about how without God, there's no purpose. So there is a God. We have purpose in our life. And I think God creates us to live out our purpose. Because if you don't live out your purpose, then your life was purposeless, if that makes sense. So, like, how can we believe in a God or submit to Christ and not live in His will and still be deemed children of God or children of Christ? I guess the question is, free will is there, but I don't think we're supposed to use it.
Okay, good. Excellent. All right. As a follower of Christ, my free will has not been eradicated, but I'm asking Christ to help me conform my will to His will. In other words, I freely want to do the purpose for which God made me, which is to love God with my heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love my neighbor as myself. I got some problems: selfishness, hatred, revenge, and I need Christ's help to change so that I really conform more to His will. Second point is, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to be creative. Obviously, Christ calls me to love, which means if I have the opportunity to get a PhD, I better go get that thing in order that I can help people more, solve problems. If God has given me abilities in business, then I better go and do the best business I can, employ people, help people make a living, and then share my resources with hurting people. So there's, you see, to love is to work for the well-being of other people. Wow, that's explosive creativity.
I mean, but like one of the things that always baffle my mind is like when, like at award shows, rappers get on stage and they thank God for like giving them this talent to do what they do. But 90% of the music is about screwing this and misogyny this and all that kind of stuff. So it's just like, I don't think God has no control over that.
That's right. That's free will.
God didn't stamp that with approval. Kind of like that one episode of Family Guy where somebody was like, "Thank God," and God like, "That wasn't me." It was like Buddha or something like that. Yeah. So I guess things like, how do we really know we're walking in God's will? Because like,
that's a good question.
Because I told you yesterday, I have to take a step back. I call myself a follower of Christ. I don't like the whole Christianity thing because like to me it's a lot of hypocrites. You know, like I tell you, I hate going to church on Sunday and I see no change to these people during the week.
Bad.
So like how do we really know we're living in God's will? You know, because it might be some people in this crowd that they're at University of Texas, but that's not really God's will for their life. But they still call themselves, I'm a follower of God, I'm a follower of Christ. Like God might want somebody to drop out of school and go work missionary in Africa or do something or feed the homeless for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
But I think you kind of said in the last argument with that guy, I think we're logical people trying to serve an illogical God. Because if you read about God, He did a lot of illogical things. Burning bushes, 2 of every animal on the ark, go kill your son on the top of a mountain. Like that makes no sense. But we try to make sense of God. So I'm saying, like, how can you really believe in God if you're always trying to play God, like you just said in your last argument? Like, isn't that kind of contradicting? Isn't that kind of hypocritical? Isn't that kind of playing like a little?
Right. I have a conscience and you have a conscience, and that conscience ties us into objective morals. But I'm really tricky, and I'm like, at times, some of those folks you've gone to church with. I can contradict Christ, which is tragic, but it's true. So I have to have something that I can compare or measure my conscience against. That's what the Gospels are for. That's what the New Testament's for. If I want to know the will of God, and Jesus says something, I got to obey it. He's the plumb line that I measure my conscience, my life against. See, the question is, has God given us a plumb line that we can measure our conscience and our reason against? And yes, Jesus says, I am that plumb line. Look at me, come to me, trust in me, and I will begin to change you from the inside out. And don't worry, sir, if you really study hard and think through God calling Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, you'll see that in Genesis 22, verse 1, we read, God tested Abraham, which means right from the get-go we know God is not going to have Abraham literally sacrifice his son. He's putting him through an extreme test. Jesus Christ and the Bible aren't contradictory, but you're right, followers of Christ can be total hypocrites at times, and that's sad. But you know, be open-minded. Don't give a hypocritical Christian the power to turn you off to the true Jesus who didn't have a hypocritical bone in his body. Right? God created you and me to live in reality. That is crucial. For it's when you and I live in reality that we begin to understand what life is really all about. When we live in reality, we learn what to live for, what our motives should be, what is a right goal in life. Understanding truth is crucial. Winston Churchill once said, occasionally men stumble over the truth. Most pick themselves up and go on as if nothing had happened. In John chapter 8, Jesus says, everyone who sins is a slave of sin. And then he goes on and says, if you know the truth will set you free. And then he concludes with, if the Son sets you free, then you'll be free indeed. Freedom is living in reality. Freedom is understanding the purpose for your life and living out that purpose. A train was made to run along two narrow tracks. If that train says, I want to be free, and flips off those tracks, that's not a flip to freedom, it's a flip to destruction. Similarly, you and I were made to run along the two tracks of God's will. To flip off the tracks of God's will onto the land of self-centeredness is not a flip to freedom, it's a flip to destruction, to death. Truth is crucial. God has given you and me rational minds in order that we might use those minds and grab hold of truth. And Jesus said, I am the truth. He's God in human form. He died on a cross for your sin, for my sin, to pay the penalty for our wrongdoing. He is our substitute. He took our place in paying the just penalty that we deserve for our wrongdoing. Truth and honesty are crucial because God created you and me to live in reality, not to live in la-la land, fantasy land. The second reason that Jesus Christ points out that honesty, truth-speaking is so important is because that's the only way to build a relationship. If I lie to you consistently, you're not going to be so naive and stupid as to trust me. And I can promise you, if you lie to me consistently, I am not going to be so naive, stupid as to trust you. Trust is crucial. And trust is based on the reliability, the honesty, the integrity of the other person. And if there's no truth speaking, if there's simply lying and manipulation and deception, then trust falls apart. And to rebuild that trust is painfully difficult. And so, God calls us to live lives of honesty, lives of truth speaking. There's a third reason that being honest and speaking the truth is so important. It's because it's the only way to build your reliability. Abe Lincoln was known for his amazing honesty. Honest Abe. In fact, when he was a store clerk, if he made a mistake and did not give back enough change to a customer, he would close the store and would walk after the customer, miles if necessary, to pay them back a few cents of change. That kind of honesty led to his nickname, Honest Abe. And people began to trust Abraham Lincoln. They began to trust him to settle disputes. They began to trust him to be an arbiter so that they could work through their problems because they knew that he would not be prejudiced or biased. He knew that he was very honest, a person of amazing integrity. That is hard for us. Yes, down deep, I'm convinced the majority of us want to be honest, but we also want stuff. And because we want stuff, we're more than willing to lie a little bit in order to get our way, to get more stuff. Jesus Christ says, watch out. Do not go down that path of lying deception in order to get more stuff. Instead, Jesus says, who you are, your character, is determined to a large extent by your pursuit of truth, by your willingness to speak the truth, to be honest, even when it's not profitable to you personally. Then you become a person of integrity, a person who is reliable, a person who can build trust with other people and therefore enjoy intimacy in your relationships. A person who understands God made me to live in reality, not to live in la-la land. Jesus Christ said, I am the truth. Why should a human being trust him? Because the evidence of the way he lived his life, a sinless life, because the evidence of his ethical teachings that have the ring of truth about him. Just read Matthew 5, 6, and 7, the Sermon on the Mount. Ethical brilliance. The evidence of Jesus' death on a cross, where he lives up to that incredibly high standard to forgive enemies. He lives it out as he prays, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, those who are taunting him from the foot of the cross. But fourthly, and most importantly, the evidence is Jesus Christ is totally reliable, totally honest. For while he walked the earth, he said, I'm going to die, and 3 days later, rise from the dead. And he pulled it off. 3 days after he died, he physically, bodily rose from the dead, and over a period of 40 days, he appeared to over 500 people who saw him risen from the dead. You can trust Jesus Christ because he is a truth speaker. He's a person of integrity. God is holy, meaning by that, not that he's a holy roller, not that he's self-righteous, meaning by that he's pure and good to the core, which means you can have a relationship of intimacy with God because he shoots straight with you. You can have a relationship of intimacy with Jesus Christ because he shoots straight with you. He has total integrity, total honesty. Put your faith, therefore, in Jesus Christ. Trust in him. I'm the pastor of Grace Community Church. We meet every Sunday morning, 9:30 at Sachs Middle School in New Canaan, Connecticut. Take the Merritt Parkway to exit 37, go to the end of the ramp, take a left onto Route 124, go approximately 1 mile and take a right into Sachs Middle School. Won't you join us this Sunday, 9:30, for our worship service? Thanks for spending these few minutes with us. Have a great day.